This talk is based on one of the chapters in my book, Dream Replay, How to Transform Your Dream Life. That's my plug. It's on sale for $15 at the conference. Can we agree that there's no single way to do dream work? Good. Can we agree that the way you do dream work is remarkably good for you? Right. So while we're all here under a big tent, it's a very big tent. And we may have very little spiritual egos, but I think most of us have a definite ego about the way we do dreams. I want to look past that a little bit and say, how do you know your dream work is effective? You've got your method, you've read Freud, you've read Jung, you've been to all kinds of experimental dream work. You've settled into your way of doing dream work. But how do you know whether it's effective or not? The archetypal way to me that most people use is something akin to the way Jeremy Taylor looks for that aha moment. So in the middle of the dream work, all of a sudden there's a clap of thunder, a bolt of lightning, somebody says, I get it, somebody starts crying, there's a deep emotional moment, and that's how we know we did some effective dream work. Sometimes you dig away for years at a dream. You have a theme and nothing quite gels. You go year in, year out, it comes back, it goes away, and you don't get there. But you know you're digging, and it's a much slower process. I'm going to suggest a second way of judging your dream work. Okay? So that besides the aha moment in your waking life, I'm going to say, what happens in your next dream? That the next dream is a test of the dream work you did on the last dream, and it's a test of whether you're going in the right direction. Let me rephrase that, because I don't even mean right direction. Your dreams are going to go in a direction that you cannot control or predict, but you can have some effect upon it. So it's somewhat like you're floating down a river, you have an oar, you can steer a little bit, but you can't really go upstream. You have to go with the flow of the dreams. But you do have some control. You can avoid some of the rocks and some of the dangerous parts. Just to make a point, dreams come in themes. In the book I use the word series. Most of us have about 5 or 7 enduring themes that tend to last through our life. And just to make this clear, let me go. How do I go back? Left arrow. I'm going to skip the... So in your waking life, you have themes. You have a work theme, you have a lover theme, you might have a bicycle theme, a yoga theme, a movie theme. And in your dream life, you have various themes. You might be looking for a bathroom, hanging off a cliff edge, meeting ancestors, animal dreams, and so on. But we have themes that repeat. And the question to me is, what is your relationship to that theme? And here I'm going to give an example. Many of my examples are in threes, and I think that's not quite an accident. So the dreamer has a nightmare that she's in the back of a driverless car. It's not an uncommon dream. Many people have had that. Just to talk about technique very briefly, We go back we don't go into the dream. She's very scared. We don't go back into the dream. I say, if they were making a movie of this dream, who would play you? She says, Angelina Jolie. So, if this is the plot for a movie, what's going on with Angelina Jolie in the back of a driverless car? Well, the bad guys put her in the car, and then it turns out her boyfriend is in the trunk of the car. She's tied up. She manages to use her teeth to open the back of the car, and the boyfriend gets into the front seat and controls the car. So that's the dream work. She likes it. She's not very impressed. The next dream is unpleasant. Her boyfriend is driving the car, and they're having an argument. So notice the change in the two dreams. Now the car is no longer out of control. She's a little bit out of control. And in the third dream, she's going somewhere. She's standing on the sidewalk in Manhattan. She flags down a taxi. So by the third dream, she's in control, and she's decided to delegate the responsibility for this driving machine. To me, that shows I did something right. If the nightmare had continued, if the emotion of the nightmare had continued, we'd be on entirely the wrong track. So the fact that she was okay with the dream in waking life was a very good indication, but when she gets to the boyfriend is driving, we know it's not a nightmare anymore. It's just unpleasant. So the goal of dream work is to have a better dream life. But it's only relative. So it's still an unpleasant dream, but it has dramatically changed. Here are 3 dreams of Emanuel Swedenborg's from his dream journal of, I think, is 1745. His first dream, and it's practically the first dream of his dream journal. I'm with a woman. I ask her to lie down with me. She says she can't because I am pure, she is pure, and he is not clean. The next dream he has about a woman. I'm with a woman sitting on a bench. A bug falls off a tree and lands between us. I'm going to explain the differences in a minute. And the third dream is, I'm invited to meet the Queen. He knew the King and Queen. But I have been on a long journey and asked to excuse myself because I am not properly dressed. Swedenborg, being a genius, is moving through his dream issues at an incredible rate. So, in the first dream, the consciousness that he has work to do is in the woman, and he is unconscious of the work he has to do. We're looking at it in a pretty Jungian way. In the second dream, the problem, the bug, is in between them. It's not in him and it's not in her. And if I remember correctly, I think he sweeps the bug off the bench. They're in a garden. And by the way, the garden theme will recur for Swedenborg. In the third dream, the problem is still there, but he's aware of his problem. He's not reliant on the feminine to explain to him what's going on. So, in 3 dreams, he's cleaned his mess up incredibly, because he can now commit. These 3 together kind of constitute an opening for a whole series of dreams in which he meets women, he goes through all kinds of escapades, embarrassments, and goodness knows what. I don't know if you know, but the Dream Journal was basically suppressed for 100 years. And finally, he gets to marry a woman, he gets to have sex with a woman. But only in his dreams. Only in his dreams. But so he's doing this without any before Freud, before Jung. He's simply asking himself, what does God want me to do with my life? And he's asking his dreams. So I just find this an incredibly moving thing. And partly what I'm saying is, whatever method you're using to be effective with your dreams, looking at the next dream will teach you which things are effective. Here's a dream of mine. I'm in a tank. There's an opening which I could look through, but I don't. I cannot tell whether this is a water tank or a war tank. It's absolutely indeterminate. I'm simply in an enclosed heavy metal space. Second dream, I'm a spy in a war. So I'm something of an observer. I'm surreptitious. It's not. I'm not actually a soldier or anything like that. In the third dream, the battle is over, so we skipped something, fortunately. Our side has won. I am on a hillside. I'm saying goodbye to a woman. I'm saying farewell to her. We're not going to meet again. We were in this war together. We were in this war together, and now she's moved on. The first dream is totally indeterminate. I don't know. I rely on the next dream to tell me where it's going. Because some things you cannot know from one single dream. So when you do that, you wait for the next dream, because the next dream is going to tell you, or it's going to move the theme along. And the third theme is a mournful resolution. I don't want to go into the details, but I hope you can see the progress there. And it's not like in the previous dreams I showed you, there's a crisis in the first dream. Here, it's not a crisis, there's an unknown in the first dream. So that's a different kind of beginning to one where you start off in crisis. This is from the first year I publicly announced that I could do dream work. And I tell a dream, a woman tells a dream. I am English, if you didn't notice. I tell a dream. The woman tells a dream. I'm so full of myself. I know I have made an absolutely brilliant interpretation. I just know it. I'm in seventh heaven. She comes back the next week, and that's the dream. I dream I'm married to Prince Charles. He's an amazing catch. The prestige of being married to him is wonderful. But I can't believe what a jerk he is. He's so pleased with himself. So I never understood that dream. So this dream, absolutely is commenting on the dream work, right? I learned my lesson. She stayed with me for a year, I want you to know. She stayed in the dream group for a year. We survived it. And notice the power. If she'd had to say that in waking life, look, you're really a jerk, David. You totally missed the point. You're so narcissistic, blah, blah, blah. she would have probably put both of us in a position where it broke up, where she left the group. But having the dream and just working with the dream without going to, I don't believe in the transference whatsoever. I don't believe in using it. So I took the message. It helped make me somewhat more humble than I was. But I love that dream. This is a 20-year nightmare. The woman walks into the dream group, a public dream group. She's had this nightmare for 20 years. She's had nightmares about the water. In waking life, she loves water. She's been to the Caribbean. She swims, etc., etc. In her dream life, she's always in danger of drowning. So we don't have a sync with waking life, and I'm not going to try and interpret the dream. Okay? She's in a hotel on a beach. There's a tsunami. They're trapped, and everybody will drown. And she wakes up in a cold sweat. In the dream work, we fumbled around for quite a while, and finally I got to the obvious question, which was, I know what I'm saying. I kind of made a joke about it and said, well, how about you lived in Kansas? Because there's no ocean in Kansas. And she said, you don't understand. I love the sea. I love the ocean. I have no wish to not be there. I just don't want to die. And so in processing a given two, the great question was, where would you be safe? And she said, what I want is a house on top of a hill overlooking the ocean. She didn't come back for a month. She came back a month later. The nightmare had gone away. A 2-3 times a week nightmare for 10-20 years had gone away. Zip. In its place, she has a dream. I'm in my car. Someone has left their purse on a glacier that's floating in the San Francisco Bay. So her friends insist that her car will float. She doesn't believe them, but they insist. So they all get in the car. She drives the car onto the water. Sure enough, the car floats. They drive over to the glacier, pick up the woman's purse, and drive back to dry land. And she wakes up in absolute ecstasy that water was not a threat to her life. So the next dream, I'm under the water, I'm learning to understand the waves that go over us. And she has a teacher who's with her under the water. There's no issue of breathing and not breathing. She's simply there, and they're watching the waves, and the teacher is explaining which waves, how you respond to individual waves. And finally, she's in a house overlooking the ocean. So she got to the place where she posited from the first dream. The theme of water is probably going to be with her for the rest of her life. She had several more dreams about water. The theme of water is going to be with her for the rest of her life, probably. But it's the relationship to the theme that you can adjust. You're going to go downstream if you're floating in a boat and you've only got an oar. But you have some choices and some skills that will allow you to avoid the rocks and the dangers. So I love that series. We only did the first piece of dream work, by the way. Everything else was just a torrent of dreams. once she was released from the need to be in the hotel drowning. End of slideshow. Okay. So there we are. If you have any questions, feel free. I do encourage you, whatever style of dream work, you can look at these themes, and it will reflect back to you where you should be working on, what issues you need to be working on, and I think it gives a great feedback to whatever way you are working with the dreams. Thank you. We have a few minutes for questions, if anyone has any.
Throughout your talk, you talk about the dream life, the flow of the river,
yes,
and the dream work itself,
yes,
as all centered in the flow of dreams. And yet, as if the dream life is completely separate from waking life.
that is
so
true.
My question is, could you speak a little about that? So in the dream work, do you ever try to connect it to the dreamer's waking life, or do you just work within the dream flow? And how does that, in the woman who's having 20 years of nightmares, that must relate to something in her waking life also?
Okay.
So how unpack
that? Let me spin it around a little. If somebody's had 20 years of nightmares, they already know why they're having the nightmare. It's just not moved. I'm not a Freudian. I'm not going to go back to what happened to their mother and father when they were 4. Personally, I think the purpose of dream life is to have a better dream life. So I am fairly resistant to interpreting the dream and taking it to waking life. No, never found out. Yeah. So from my perspective, I would hold that. If the dreamer brings it in, I will deal with it, but I don't pull for the waking life issues. Yeah, thank you.
Better, they may not share it because they're having another.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a huge amount of literature on nightmares, and there's almost nothing, if not actually nothing, about what happens after your dream life after the nightmare. I will tell people, I will sometimes say, wait for the next dream and see what happens. In some cases, I'll lay out a bunch of scenarios. If you've been in my groups, you might have heard me. So it's an option, yeah. Thank you. Curtis.
You represented this, I'm sure for heuristic purposes, as literally being the very next dream. But isn't it
Thank you.
the case that it might be several dreams down the line or many dreams down the line?
Thank you, Curtis. Absolutely. We're looking for the next dream in a theme.
Yes.
Experimentally, the next dream they bring in, we're going to look at and say, is this related to the one we last worked on? But absolutely, it can be days, weeks, months later. Yeah. Josie.
Yeah, I was struck by 3. You're focusing in on that and it's an observation. It struck me how there is an arc within a dream structure, like a dramatic arc. They have
Yes.
3 parts to it, presents an issue or whatever, working through it and resolution. But with the thematic work, the way you're presenting it, it's almost like a play in 3 acts that you're kind of doing. I don't know. It doesn't make sense.
I notice things in 3s. I don't wish to say they happen in 3s as there's something structural about it. It's certainly in my imagination. I tend to notice 3s. Not always by any means, and sometimes the theme, the issue can repeat over and over and over, and then you get some movement. Yeah. Yes. Yes. I am totally useless at incubating. My dream life goes where it goes. Some people are good at incubating dreams, and that's relevant. But I am more focused on dream life as pure dream life, rather than looking for solutions. But I think that would be very interesting. Yeah, Christian.
I would just like to comment on this concept of three. There was a very interesting paper written many years ago, an anthropological study, and it's entitled "The Significance of Three in American Culture." In our culture, we do things in threes: A, B, C, red light, green light, yellow light, what have you. Strike one, strike two, strike three. And if you were in a different culture, I would suspect these dreams would resolve themselves in fours or on the polo in eights. That kind of thing.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I hadn't articulated that. Okay. Daniel.
Just a comment on your own dreams. You might like to share. And when I was looking at this, what's the theme? And I saw it between the first one and the second one. It was about seeing, or
Yeah.
And one is like a window, and the other one is like on a spy.
Yes.
It seems like, and I'm kind of looking at things without the other one knowing.
My mother was in a coma. She wasn't in a coma. She was in her last few days. So there was no interaction. I hadn't noticed that, but there was no interaction, and she lost the battle. Yeah. Thank you. Gone. So, find your own dream work, see how it works with the next dream. Thank you.